Welcome to the Deep Dive. You've shared a truly fascinating collection of material with us, all zeroing in on innovation, creativity, and leadership right here in the Australian Capital Territory.
Yeah, quite a deep set of documents.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission in this deep dive is to extract the core insights from these sources, especially that detailed study, innovation, creativity, and leadership, along with its appendices, exploring Canberra as a potential international design hub, and even diving into government procurement data. We're aiming to understand not just what's happening with innovation and creativity in Canberra, but what those dynamics can teach us about other places as well.
And what's immediately interesting is how the study sets the stage by defining our key terms. Innovation, as they put it, isn't just a sudden flash of genius. It's the successful implementation of new ideas.
Right, the follow-through.
Exactly.
Right.
Creativity, on the other hand, is that initial spark, the development of original ideas with a practical, maybe commercial angle in mind. And then leadership is the crucial piece that takes those creative sparks and turns them into tangible realities through effective management.
Got it.
Importantly, they highlight that innovation isn't just about the hard sciences and technology. The softer aspects, like how something feels or looks, the sensory appeal, are equally vital and rely heavily on the creative talents of what they call knowledge workers.
Right, so it's a much wider lens than just labs and experiments, and the study introduces this concept of innovation systems, which I found really helpful.
Yes, that's a core concept.
Think of these as the frameworks that cities and regions develop, almost like interconnected hubs of capability that facilitate connections between businesses, research centers, educational institutions, and the government. It's all about these vital linkages.
Absolutely, the connections are key.
Now, while the traditional view often focuses heavily on science and R&D, our deep dive today is also going to explore what the study terms the arts and creative practices system.
Which is often overlooked.
Exactly. Here's where it gets really interesting, because it emphasizes how creativity itself is a major driver of innovation, all connected through design, research, education, and our cultural institutions.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the study then focuses specifically on Canberra, and some of the early data really stands out.
Oh, yeah?
Back in 2006, they identified around 3,000 creative businesses in the ACT, which made up over 10% of all businesses.
Wow, that's significant.
It is, and what's particularly telling is that a large proportion of these were micro businesses and sole traders. A pattern they observed was similar to dynamic creative centers like London and Berlin.
So what does this tell us about Canberra's innovation landscape? The high proportion of micro-businesses suggests a real grassroots energy, much like we see in established creative hubs, which is a strong foundation to build upon.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just the sheer number of businesses, but also the strength of Canberra's cultural institutions and creative industries.
Wow.
The study points out that this isn't unique to Canberra. It's a pattern you see in other successful innovation hubs around the globe, places like Ottawa, London, Washington, Berlin, and Wellington.
So it seems a strong cultural backbone and a thriving creative sector aren't just a bonus. They're actually fundamental ingredients for a successful innovation ecosystem.
That seems to be the argument, yes. It raises an important question about how we traditionally think about innovation.
How so?
Well, the study highlights an emerging trend in successful city innovation strategies, a shift away from simply trying to replicate a Silicon Valley model, which was very heavily weighted towards information technology.
Right, the sort of pure tech focus.
Exactly. Instead, the strategies that are proving successful are increasingly focused on the synergy between IT and arts creative practices.
Interesting combination.
Very. We're also seeing a growing emphasis on universities actively collaborating with industry, and perhaps unsurprisingly, given Canberra's context, a rising demand for security solutions.
So for you, the listener who wants to get informed quickly but thoroughly, the study pinpoints some really key issues for Canberra's innovation-based economic development strategy. Right at the top seems to be creating what they call critical mass among these smaller businesses by really encouraging collaboration and networking.
That makes sense, given the number of micro-businesses.
Then there's the absolutely vital role of leadership and building the core business capacity needed for growth.
And if we dig a little deeper, the study also highlights a challenge many businesses in Canberra were facing, actually finding skilled staff across a range of areas.
Not just tech.
No, not just the typical tech roles in IT, but also in finance and even in specialized fields like conservation.
Really?
Conservation?
Apparently so. And there's also this internal competition for talent with the Commonwealth government, which, as the study notes, can often offer more attractive salaries.
Ah, the big employer in town. Which leads to a really interesting point. The study put forward a suggestion to potentially adjust student visa
Oh,
requirements.
yes, I saw that. To try and retain some of those skilled international graduates in Australia, particularly in fields like ICT and commerce, where there are both significant skill gaps and clear business opportunities.
It makes a lot of sense. We attract bright minds, they get educated here, and then we risk losing them just when they could be making significant contributions.
Seems like a potential win-win if they could figure it out.
Now, let's transition a bit to the conceptual framework of innovation that the study lays out.
Okay.
It's crucial to remember that innovation isn't just about the technical aspects, the purely functional elements. It also has a significant sensory appeal, what they refer to as hard and soft innovation.
Right, the look and feel stuff.
Exactly. Think about it. A product can be technically groundbreaking, but if it's clunky or visually unappealing, it might not succeed in the market.
Totally. And this is where creativity and design really step into the spotlight.
Mm.
The study explains the relationship beautifully. Creativity is about generating those novel ideas, innovation is about successfully bringing them to fruition, and design acts as that essential bridge,
The connector.
shaping those raw ideas into practical and crucially attractive propositions for users or customers. It's the link between the initial what if and the practical how can we make this work and look great.
What's fascinating here is that Australia has actually recognized the economic significance of design for quite some time.
How's it?
The study points back to the 1995 National Design Review, which really emphasized how design provides the commercial foundation for adding value and successfully commercializing innovations.
Way back in 95.
Yeah, it's perhaps surprising that this message didn't gain more widespread traction in policy until more recently, with states like Victoria and Queensland now developing specific design-focused innovation policies.
Interesting lag there, and the study makes it really clear that just having brilliant ideas and good design isn't enough for sustained innovation.
No, definitely not.
You absolutely need to build that underlying management capacity and develop strong entrepreneurial skills to keep the whole engine running.
It's not just about that initial spark. It's about nurturing that flame over the long term.
Makes sense.
This brings us to the concept of innovation systems mapping. The study advocates for a broader view than just science and technology,
Right, expanding beyond the labs again.
explicitly including the art and creative practices domain in our understanding of how innovation takes place. And it's not just about businesses and research institutions, it's also about recognizing the vital role of human capital.
People.
Things like education, labor markets, and continuous learning, as well as what they term knowledge repositories. Your libraries, galleries, and museums. These are all integral parts of the innovation ecosystem.
Okay, so libraries and galleries are part of the innovation system. That's a broader definition than usual.
It is, but it highlights where ideas can be stored, accessed, and potentially spark new ones.
And speaking of human capital, the study references Richard Florida's work, which identified this really clear link between economic success and the concentration of highly educated individuals, this clustering of human capital.
Right, the creative class idea.
It seems businesses thrive and gravitate towards these areas not solely to be near customers and suppliers, but really to tap into those deep reserves of talent.
And Florida's research, as the study highlights, suggests that what attracts this human capital boils down to a few key elements.
Like what?
Thick labor markets, meaning a wide range of employment opportunities, diversity, signaling an open and inclusive environment, and quality of place, things like good design, a vibrant culture, and plenty of amenities.
So it's about creating a location where talented people actively want to live and build their careers.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
It's the whole package.
That makes perfect sense.
Uh.
And the study also points to some really interesting research suggesting that when small and medium-sized businesses hire university graduates,
This is interesting.
it can actually shift their fundamental approach to innovation and provide them with better connections to scientific knowledge.
Right.
This raises a really compelling point about potentially offering subsidies for those initial graduate hires to inject that expertise and fresh perspectives into SMEs.
It's an idea worth considering, certainly. Now, when we talk about skills in the ACT, the study stresses that it goes beyond just traditional vocational training.
Okay.
There's a genuine need for knowledge workers in those technology, culture, and creative fields we've been discussing.
Right, the people driving the soft innovation too.
Precisely. They even use the example of a shortage of conservation and preservation workers identified by the Collections Council of Australia, highlighting that the skills gap isn't solely in the high-tech sector.
That conservation example, again, fascinating, shows the breadth.
It
And
does.
underpinning so much of this is the enabling role of information and communications technology, ICT.
Absolutely
And
fundamental.
the study emphasizes that ICT is really the foundation for the burgeoning creative industries, almost reestablishing that historical connection between science and art.
That's a nice way to put it.
It's not just about the functional aspects of technology anymore. ICT is absolutely crucial for that aesthetic or soft innovation too, leading to the growth of the creative industries as a truly significant economic force in Canberra.
And what's increasingly happening, as the study notes, is that as products and services become more similar in their core functionality, businesses are increasingly competing on their aesthetic and sensory features, the look and feel.
So differentiation comes through design.
Increasingly, yes. This really shines a spotlight on the growing importance of interactive design and that ability to translate user interaction into new and appealing products.
And on a broader scale, cities themselves are now in competition based on knowledge capital, creative capital, and that increasingly important city of design branding,
That branding piece is huge now.
with UNESCO accreditation being the gold standard for the latter. It really underscores how globally design is being recognized as a key driver of innovation and economic growth.
So it's significant that the ACT government itself has identified creative industries as a priority sector, placing it alongside established areas like biotechnology, defense, and ICT.
That's a big step, formally recognizing it like that.
It is. This formal recognition of Canberra's talented creative workforce is a vital step forward.
And they've put resources behind this with targeted investments in areas like Screen ACT, which supports the film, television, and digital media sectors.
Yep, Screen ICT gets mentioned quite a bit.
And the National ICT Center of Excellence. These initiatives are specifically designed to capitalize on the ACT's unique strengths at the intersection of creative industries and ICT.
To give us a bit more context, the study reminds us of the ACT's economic contribution, noting that it accounts for over 2% of Australia's GDP.
Okay, so not insignificant.
And its gross state product growth has frequently outpaced the national average. This highlights the underlying economic strength and the potential for further expansion.
And the strategies for nurturing this knowledge economy in the ACT include things like dedicated investment funds, policies around intellectual property management to facilitate local commercialization,
Getting that IP piece right is tricky but important.
and active support for partnerships between companies both within Canberra and nationally. They're also focusing on proactively marketing the ACT's strengths, both domestically and internationally, including using urban planning policies to encourage that clustering of innovation-based industries we discussed earlier.
Right, trying to deliberately create those hubs. What's particularly interesting in the Canberra context is the dynamic interplay between those large national industries, often government-related, and the many smaller, more agile and creative businesses.
That interaction seems key.
A significant amount of innovation in Canberra is actually fueled by this interaction, often driven by research, development, and design, especially in fields like art, architecture, design, and film.
Okay.
And the study highlights those increasingly strong connections with ICT, particularly in digital media and creative content, with Screen ACT serving as a prime example of an organization actively fostering this convergence.
Now, the study also delves into the significant role of the Australian government as a major customer in the ACT,
Huge customer.
with over $4.1 billion in procurement in the 2006-07 period alone. That's a substantial market.
Massive.
However, it also raises a really important point about the potential tension between government procurement policies, which understandably prioritize value for money, and probity, essentially ethical conduct,
Probity, always a big one in government.
and the desire to stimulate innovation from suppliers.
This is a critical point. The study suggests that it's largely up to the supplier to initiate innovative approaches within the existing procurement framework.
So the onus is on the business.
Pretty much. There isn't a great deal of informal interaction between government, industry, and higher education outside of the formal purchasing process. The process itself is characterized as time-consuming and heavily legally driven,
Sounds like a barrier for small players.
which can be a significant hurdle for smaller, more innovative players. While the Department of Finance and Administration offers guidance on ethical and transparent dealings and advises on relationship building, the system as it's structured may not inherently incentivize radical innovation.
That's a tough nut to crack. So to think about how to build stronger innovation system capabilities, the study draws on a framework from the U.S. American Competitiveness Initiative.
Yeah, a useful checklist almost.
This includes investing in areas like cutting-edge basic research, the necessary scientific tools, private sector R&D, higher education, workforce training from K-12 upwards, robust intellectual property protection, immigration policies designed to attract talent, and a supportive environment for entrepreneurship.
It's a really comprehensive overview of what helps an innovation ecosystem flourish.
So when we analyze the ACT's strengths through this lens, what stands out?
Well, a few key things become clear. The study emphasizes that ACT universities conduct a significant portion of Australia's higher education research, particularly in pure and strategic basic research.
Right, the fundamental stuff.
And in crucial fields like mathematical, physical, chemical, and earth sciences. This strong research base is a major asset for the territory.
And it's not just the universities. The ACT's senior secondary colleges played an important role in bridging the gap between education and the workforce,
That vocational link.
with a significant proportion of students participating in vocational programs. This demonstrates a recognition of the need to connect academic learning with practical skills relevant to industry.
In terms of intellectual property, Australia's system is administered at the federal level by the Australian Intellectual Property Office, so the ACT benefits from this national framework.
Okay, it's covered national.
However, the study revisits a persistent challenge. The fact that overseas PhD graduates often need to leave Australia to apply for permanent residency,
Ah, yes, that visa issue again.
which contrasts with practices in countries like the US that actively seek to retain this highly skilled talent.
Seems like a missed opportunity. The study also touches on various government programs aimed at supporting innovation and commercialization, such as Commercial Ready and the R&D tax concession.
Important mechanisms, definitely. These are important mechanisms for helping to translate research findings into tangible commercial outcomes.
Right, helping bridge that valley of death.
What's particularly insightful is the study's focus on cultural entrepreneurs as key drivers within the creative industries.
Cultural entrepreneurs, like arts entrepreneurs.
Essentially, yes. They draw a direct parallel here with entrepreneurs in science and technology, highlighting the similar need for incubators and venture capital to support these creative ventures as well.
So treating creative startups more like tech startups in terms of support.
That's the implication. And the study really underscores just how transformative digital technologies have been for enabling the creative industries.
Can't overstate that.
But it's crucial to understand that it's not just about the technology itself. The real magic happens when you effectively link design with tangible commercial opportunities.
Right, making it viable.
That's where both the major challenges and the immense potential reside. It's even fascinating to see how venture capital in the US has begun to shift its focus towards creative ideas and network effects.
Really, away from just pure tech.
Well, maybe not away from, but certainly broadening. Recognizing that in many cases, the underlying technology itself can become a commodity. The value is in the application, the idea, the network.
That's a significant shift.
And the data presented in the study really highlights the ACT's strong position in the creative industries. Back in 2001, it had the highest proportion of employment in these sectors across Australia.
Number one.
Yep. And by 2006, the number of creative businesses was also significantly higher than the national average. The concentration in areas like software development and interactive content really underscores that powerful convergence of IT and creative practices. ITCP, they call it.
ITCP. Okay. And to bring this to life, the study provides some excellent examples of successful ACT-based creative businesses.
Yeah, some good case studies.
Like ZOO Group, which operates in design, advertising, interactive media, and public relations, and Ronin Films, a documentary film distributor with a national reach.
It really illustrates the diverse range of activities within the sector and the significant potential for growth, particularly in areas like documentary filmmaking, especially with the support of Screen ACT.
And didn't it also mention gaming?
It did. The study also shines a light on the innovative and internationally oriented games development cluster in the ACT, which is supported by key institutions like the Academy of Interactive Entertainment, AIE, a leading educator in the field.
Right, AIE is well known.
These examples really showcase the ACT's ability to blend creativity and technological expertise.
And building on this, the study explicitly recommends that the ACT government consider making further strategic investments to build even greater capability within the creative sector.
More support needed.
And crucially, to actively accelerate the bridging of those creative and technology worlds.
Now, let's revisit the topic of government procurement for a moment.
Okay, back to procurement.
The study reiterates that the strong emphasis on legal and probity considerations can unintentionally lead to a contracting culture that prioritizes simply meeting specifications,
Ticking the boxes.
over encouraging truly innovative solutions and fostering collaborative, risk-sharing partnerships with suppliers.
It also touches on the traditional reliance on grant funding within the arts and culture sector.
Which has its own set of dynamics.
However, with the rise of the creative industries, driven by digital technologies and entrepreneurial ventures that skillfully exploit the convergence of IT and creative practices, we're seeing a real shift towards greater economic significance for this sector.
So, to summarize the study's key conclusions regarding capability development within the ACT innovation system, where does it land?
Good question.
It demonstrates a strong foundation in science and technology, which is partly a result of deliberate government policies and consistent demand.
Okay, strong in science.
It also possesses a significant, though often underappreciated, strength in creativity-based businesses.
The hidden gem, maybe?
Kind of. And finally, there's a growing capacity for entrepreneurship as the traditional reliance on government contracting gradually evolves.
So potential there.
Definitely. The commercially focused, digitally oriented creative industries sector holds substantial promise for driving economic development and enhancing Canberra's reputation as a city of art and design.
But one of the key gaps the study identifies is the absence of an Australian equivalent to the highly influential UK Design Council,
Right, no central design body.
which has played a significant role in shaping the British design industry. It also points out that the representation of the arts and creative industries in policymaking and industry development tends to be somewhat fragmented.
Siloed, maybe.
Perhaps. To address this, they actually propose establishing a new, broad-based organization, tentatively named Innovation Canberra,
Innovation Canberra.
to provide strategic leadership for ICT, arts, and creative industries, bringing it all together under one roof.
That's a big recommendation. The study also underscores the importance of industry associations and networking events for facilitating knowledge sharing.
Standard practice, sure.
However, it also notes the increasingly valuable role of social networking and fostering collaborations, particularly in competitive environments.
So informal networks matter too.
Very much so. And crucially, national and international conferences and events are highlighted as key for driving collaborations, especially in the ICT and creative industries. Positioning Canberra as an international city of design would significantly support this.
Bringing people to Canberra for these events to further join the dots within the creative capability landscape. The study suggests greater public recognition of achievements in the sector
Celebrating success.
and a long-term commitment to hosting an annual innovation festival that aligns with the National Australian Innovation Festival. It's all about raising the profile and celebrating the spirit of innovation.
The study also examines the role of technology parks and seed funding initiatives in the ACT, mentioning Epicorp and ANU Connect Ventures as examples of organizations that support early-stage ventures and help to commercialize research.
So there are support structures in place.
Yes, but it's vital to remember that government support alone isn't sufficient. A committed partnership between industry, education, and government is essential, with leadership often emerging from within industry and higher education.
Right, it can't just be top-down. When we look at the dynamics of the innovation system, the study references trends towards both agglomeration, the clustering of large, often global businesses,
Like Silicon Valley.
and disaggregation, where smaller, highly specialized companies form collaborative partnerships.
The network model.
In the ACT context, we see large government bureaucracies, a smaller number of global corporations, businesses building relationships along the value chain, common in ICT, and a significant number of small, highly innovative businesses. When we talk about agglomeration, think of it like how many tech companies cluster in Silicon Valley. That's agglomeration. In Canberra, you see a form of this, around government services.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The study characterizes those large bureaucratic organizations in Canberra as major purchasers of goods and services, but not typically as primary drivers of innovation themselves.
Buyers, not builders, in that sense.
Often, yes. This contrasts with concentrated global corporations that often have the resources to bring significant discoveries to market. Interestingly, they also note an increasing concentration in professional services and vertically integrated advertising companies operating in Canberra.
So some consolidation happening there too. On the other hand, startup and spin-out businesses are identified as a major source of innovation,
The engine room, often.
often originating from academic research or the identification of new market opportunities. The study provides successful ACT examples like Submersion with their 3D simulation software,
I remember seeing their work.
and Irrational Games Micro Forte in the game development industry, both of which have gained national and international recognition for their creativity and innovation.
The study also discusses integration businesses, which are built on cooperation and collaboration through contractual relationships.
How does that work?
Well, in the creative industries, this often takes the form of horizontal integration, where you might see several freelance designers or small studios collaborating on a larger project. They're integrating their skills horizontally across the same level.
Gotcha. Pooling resources for bigger jobs.
Exactly. And of course, the various interactions and connections within the innovation system are absolutely crucial.
The linkages again.
Right. This includes the relationships between businesses, like pharmaceutical companies often relying on smaller biotech startups for early-stage drug development,
Okay, big buying from small.
or larger prime contractors frequently partnering with smaller ICT firms for government procurement. It also encompasses the vital links between business, research institutions, and government agencies, which facilitate the transfer and practical application of knowledge.
Knowledge transfer.
The study notes that NICTA, for example, has found it easier to establish collaborations with ICT businesses that have grown up within the ACT ecosystem. Familiarity helps.
Makes sense. Local networks.
The study points out that while Canberra possesses significant innovation opportunities, it unfortunately sometimes suffers from the perception of being primarily a public service town.
The Canberra bubble idea.
Sort of, yeah. Even though public administration and defense together account for just over a quarter of total employment. This perception can unfortunately act as a barrier when it comes to attracting both talent and investment.
Hard to shake that image sometimes. To gain a broader perspective, the study looks at best practice examples from other cities around the world.
Always useful to look outwards.
Berlin, a UNESCO City of Design, is highlighted as a vibrant hub for creative professions, benefiting from strong government funding for R&D, though it faces some challenges in translating that research into commercial successes.
So, strong research, weaker commercialization. Like Canberra in some ways.
Interesting parallel. Greater Washington is a major center for higher education, research, and government-related activities, benefiting significantly from substantial government funding and procurement, particularly in areas like homeland security and defense.
Very government-centric, like Canberra too, but perhaps more overtly industry-focused around security.
And Wellington, known as New Zealand's cultural and creative capital, boasts strong research across sciences, technology, and the creative arts, with key high-growth industries including film, manufacturing, education, biotech, professional services, and ICT.
Wellington's film industry is world-renowned, of course. What a workshop and all that.
Exactly. The key takeaway from these best practice examples seems to be the clear recognition that the creative sector is a major engine for both employment and economic growth in these successful cities.
It's not just a nice to have.
Right. They all share a strong foundation of national cultural institutions, significant international events, thriving arts facilities, and robust research and teaching organizations, along with good infrastructure, well-educated populations, and a visible celebration of their creative capabilities through various festivals and initiatives.
The study also outlines several emerging trends that are likely to have a significant impact on innovation within the ACT.
Okay, what's on the horizon?
The increasing prevalence of the internet and advanced communication technologies is reducing the need for highly centralized corporate operations, distributed workforces.
Right.
Interestingly, creative professionals often show a preference for vibrant urban settings over the more traditional engineering-focused cultures of places like Silicon Valley.
Lifestyle matters.
Very much. Successful city innovation strategies are increasingly focusing on the powerful combination of IT and creative practices, which tends to be less capital-intensive and requires a broader mix of skills.
That ITCP convergence again.
Yep. ICT is increasingly viewed as essential infrastructure and a key enabler for productivity growth across a wide range of sectors, including services and even defense. Software has become ubiquitous and is fundamentally transforming business models across the board.
Software eating the world.
Pretty much. Crucially, software development is no longer solely the domain of IT specialists. The growing convergence of ICT and creative practices is generating entirely new opportunities for the creative industries, something particularly relevant for Canberra.
Okay.
And finally, increasing urbanization worldwide is driving a greater demand for cultural consumption. More people in cities means more demand for arts, entertainment, design.
Got it. The role of higher education in regional development is also undergoing a significant shift.
How so?
Well, the traditional focus was often primarily on the commercialization of university research, which can often have a global impact with limited direct local benefit.
Right. The big discovery might get licensed overseas.
Exactly. The new emphasis is increasingly on research cooperation and collaboration with local industries, as well as developing industry-partnered education and training programs specifically designed to address local skills needs.
So, universities as partners in local development, not just IP factories.
That seems to be the trend. In the realm of biotechnology, the study suggests a new way of thinking about its overall contribution to the ACT economy.
Okay. What's the take on biotech?
It recognizes that standalone biotech companies are often relatively small and frequently contract with larger firms for manufacturing and distribution.
The partnership model.
Therefore, the significant local employment impacts that might be expected from major blockbuster drug discoveries often don't materialize locally.
Ah, so managing expectations about biotech job creation.
Exactly. This suggests the need for a more nuanced understanding of biotech's role in the ACT.
The increased global demand for robust security solutions, driven by a range of global threats, presents another significant opportunity for Canberra.
Given the government and defense presence.
Precisely. Particularly given the Australian government's strong focus on security. We already see Canberra-based companies like Active Identity providing identity assurance solutions on a global scale, directly capitalizing on this demand.
Right, leveraging that local demand internationally. Finally, the study highlights a growing trend in the UK and across Europe, where governments are increasingly using their own procurement processes as a means to actively source innovation.
Procurement as a tool for innovation, not just buying stuff cheap.
Mirroring how the corporate sector often uses purchasing and strategic alliances to drive innovation. The AHO report, for example, specifically called for leveraging public procurement to create demand for innovative goods and services.
So, revisiting Canberra's inherent competitive advantages, where does the study land on those?
It underscores a strong existing base in creative consumption, fueled by local demographics,
Educated, relatively well-off population.
as well as significant opportunities in the emerging intersection of ICT, art, and creative practices, the national collections and conservation sector, and of course in education and research.
A solid foundation.
However, it also clearly identifies the need to address existing challenges in order to fully realize this potential.
Which brings us back to things like,
A key focus for Canberra needs to be on creating critical mass within the business sector by building stronger and more effective business networks and actively working to overcome some of the inherent challenges associated with the prevailing government procurement culture.
networking and fixing procurement. Got it. The study also addresses the issue of outmigration of skilled people, noting that a significant number of young professionals in Canberra have plans to leave for career opportunities elsewhere.
The brain drain issue.
This is a common characteristic of the highly mobile knowledge workforce, and strategies to mitigate this are crucial. Keep the talent here.
Despite these challenges, there's some truly cutting-edge research happening right here in Canberra,
Oh, yeah.
such as the work on human-computer interaction at the Media Lab, which is integrating sensors, artificial intelligence, and really innovative hybrid art engineering projects.
That sounds fascinating. The vision for strategically positioning Canberra as an international city of design.
That big idea.
Leveraging its unique design and cultural infrastructure, as well as its potential for hosting significant design and architecture events, is a compelling one.
What would that involve?
The study details specific actions to pursue this vision, including actively seeking UNESCO status, raising the international profile of the Canberra Biennial, establishing a dedicated graduate design school, advocating for a national design museum to be located in
A
Canberra,
National Design Museum. Interesting.
and encouraging the National Design Association to establish its headquarters here, really anchoring design leadership in the capital.
Canberra's established role as a national center for conservation management and practice, given its numerous cultural and collecting institutions, is also highlighted as a key strength to build upon.
Right, leveraging those national institutions. The study summarizes several key recommendations for further developing the ACT as both a national and international hub for innovation.
Like what, specifically?
These include formally establishing Innovation Canberra with a broad strategic focus encompassing ICT, arts, and creative industries.
That central body again.
Creating an innovation development center specifically designed to support new business ventures, and providing dedicated support, including advice and mentoring, to facilitate the transition towards sustainable business models.
The study also reiterates the important recommendation to actively advocate for the integration of innovation considerations within government procurement processes.
Keep pushing on procurement reform. Ultimately, the study emphasizes the fundamental need to develop a more progressive and dynamic brand for Canberra, particularly within Australia.
Changing that perception we talked about.
Through a collaborative and cohesive strategy involving government, industry, educational institutions, cultural organizations, and research bodies, all working together to position it firmly as an international city of design.
A united front on branding. The study also outlines UNESCO's specific requirements for achieving City of Design status. What do you need?
Well, these include having a well-established design industry, a culturally rich landscape significantly influenced by design, reputable design schools and research centers.
Okay, the infrastructure.
Actively practicing designers with national and international engagement, design-driven creative industries, and a proven track record of hosting design-related events.
Quite a list. And the potential benefits.
The potential benefits of achieving UNESCO's City of Design designation are substantial, including enhanced global recognition, opportunities for international knowledge sharing, the fostering of local capacity building,
Building skills locally.
the stimulation of innovation through international exchange, and the promotion of local cultural products on a global scale, ultimately contributing to the new economy, driven by thriving creative hubs.
The study lists several potential positive outcomes of successfully positioning Canberra as an international city of design,
Such as?
including attracting more international cultural events, boosting cultural tourism, raising community awareness and appreciation of design, clearly demonstrating design's significant economic contribution,
Making the economic case.
developing innovative new city branding strategies, creating new jobs, training opportunities, and attracting investment, providing stronger support for local designers, and generating valuable resources for design research and education.
So a wide range of potential upsides. Finally, the appendices to the study provide some really valuable detailed data.
Right, the attachments. What's in those?
Attachment B gives a breakdown of Australian government contracts gazetted in the ACT and surrounding region during 2006-07, classified by ANZ code, which is a standard way governments classify different industries,
Okay, the spending data.
showing significant spending in areas like construction, transport and communications, and various business services, including advertising and personnel placement. It also breaks down procurement by agency and department, clearly highlighting the Department of Defense as the largest single procurer.
No surprise there, defense being the biggest spender.
Not really. Attachment C provides data on R&D expenditure within the ACT's higher education sector, demonstrating its strong overall position in research funding, particularly in pure and strategic basic research,
The university research strengths.
and in fields like mathematical, physical, chemical, and earth sciences. It also notes a relatively lower proportion of expenditure in applied research and technological sciences, while highlighting a significant focus on computing and communication sciences.
So strong basic science, maybe less applied focus back then.
That's what the data suggests. This attachment also includes data on R&D expenditure categorized by socioeconomic objective, showing key areas of focus such as defense, economic development, including plant and animal production and mineral resources, health, education, and the environment.
Attachment D offers key insights into the financing of startup businesses. This is always interesting.
Yeah, differentiating between venture capital-backed firms, often characterized by exceptional founders and groundbreaking ideas, attracting significant early-stage capital but facing intense scrutiny,
They're unicorns.
and bootstrapped companies, which are more common, often based on adapted or replicated ideas, flexibly responding to opportunities and growing incrementally over many years with more modest initial funding.
The slow burners.
Exactly. The study emphasizes that the role of venture capital is often overstated, being primarily primarily dominant in the ICT and biotech sectors,
So VC isn't everything.
and suggests that public policy should also prioritize supporting established technology-based businesses in developing sustainable business models and effectively addressing market risks. Don't just focus on the shiny new startups.
Good point. And finally, attachment E.
And finally, Attachment E provides a brief overview of the MIT Media Lab as a highly successful example of an institution that fosters innovation through interdisciplinary research, state-of-the-art facilities, and a core philosophy that emphasizes the use of technology for both learning and creative expression. A model to look at.
Okay, a benchmark example.
So circling back to you, the listener, we truly hope this deep dive has provided you with a valuable and insightful understanding of the intricate dynamics of innovation, creativity, and leadership within the ACT, and the broader lessons that these insights offer.
And for me, a key takeaway is just how increasingly crucial that intersection and collaboration between technology and the creative arts is becoming as a primary driver of economic growth.
That ITCP convergence.
And a defining characteristic of those truly successful innovation hubs around the globe. It just keeps coming up.
It really does. So here's a final provocative thought for you to consider. Given the ACT's unique position as the nation's capital, with its significant concentration of both cultural and research institutions,
All that potential.
what are some of the most unconventional and unexpected collaborations that could potentially emerge between these seemingly distinct sectors, and what globally impactful innovations might they unlock in the years to come?
Mixing things up even more.
Yeah.
Art Gallery meets AI Lab. National Archives meet game developers.
Exactly. It's definitely something worth pondering and perhaps even exploring further within these very sources.